Really quick announcement. We're starting a Dynasty Fantasy Football League, a viewer league. If you want to join, tweet at us at third and 20 underscore on Twitter, or leave a comment if you're watching the video on YouTube. Like and subscribe as well. Thanks, guys.
Third down and 20.
All right,
Here, I
so
think
my number one head coach GM pair is Brett Veach and Andy Reid. I think that one they're probably top
that one
three for everyone.
easily. I mean, they were my number one too, just because like they go out there and make moves, and they're just winning football games. And they have been before Mahomes, but now they are Super Bowl bound every single year, and there's not many teams like if there's any team at all can say that coming into every season.
Well, yeah, I just think the moves picking up Orlando Brown, I thought was a phenomenal move for this football team. To me, Orlando Brown, I truly believe I'd probably say he's a top 5 tackle in the league. That might be a little hasty, but from a value perspective, like this guy is insane, and I think he's really going to flourish at the left tackle spot. He's just a big ass dude. Yeah, like the moves that they make, the plan that they've had, the execution of the Alex Smith to Patrick Mahomes transition obviously can't be understated. And so much so that it seems like half of the league is trying to copy their mold of ensuring that you have a veteran bridge quarterback into your starter that you drafted in the first round but sat for a year. Like the fact that it was done before them, but they really it seems like everyone's doing it now unless your team really sucks. So yeah, I think that they're an easy top 3, number 1 for me. Let's go with your number 2. I'm curious to see who you have as number 2.
I do. I want to do it so bad. I'm gonna say my number 2 is Brandon Beane, the GM from the Bills, and Sean McDermott. I think that they've been a really good mix. They drafting Josh Allen. It's been a home run so far. The Stephon Diggs trade, a great trade. You saw how great he was last year, and building up the defense. I'd like to see him, maybe get a little running game going, or get a running back, but. Overall, the Bills, since Sean McDermott has entered in and Brandon Beane's been there, it's been a great mix. They're back winning games, and they're still they are a Super Bowl tier team as well.
Yeah, I also have them in my top 5. My number 2, this might be a homer pick. It's Mike Tomlin and Kevin Colbert. I just really – the thing is, though, is that the fact that under Mike Tomlin, the Steelers haven't had a losing season – it's just a ridiculous level of consistency. Like, I truly do believe that you can throw this tandem on about any football team in the league, and they'll find a way to put the organization in a better spot a couple years down the line. They have a very consistent and calculated process. Kevin Colbert he's adjusted a little bit to the more aggressive modern GMs of the league, which I think was nice. And you saw with the addition of Minka and trading up for Devin Bush, like those nice moves that were considered risky from an organization that usually didn't take a lot of risks in the draft and in free agency. I mean, it was cool to see, and the execution was great. So that tandem to me is easily in the top 3. Especially since we're excluding Belichick.
Yeah, well, Kevin Colbert and Tomlin are my 3. I just think they're a good little mix, and Colbert's. I think one of his best moves, when you talked about it, was that Minka trade because it just transformed that defense.
Hey, it's just crazy. We were 0-3 at the time, and everyone's saying, "Oh, that's a top quarterback in the league," and it was just. Looking back, that was just a phenomenal deal for Pittsburgh at a weird time. So my number 3 is Mickey Loomis and Sean Payton.
Okay.
Yeah, listen, it's not necessarily perfect with the Saints. They whiff on some draft picks here and there, but This is another group that I am just confident that they are going to consistently put together competitive football teams. Simple as that. Like, you have your ups and downs as a Saints fan. You know, it's been a lot of ups, especially under Drew Brees, but dude, you can't understate some of the draft picks that they've had and some of the draft classes that they've had, adding a plethora of talent recently. I really like this tandem. Like, and to me, I think that I feel like I said every week, like Sean Payton is just a top coach in the league. He's incredibly creative and he's an innovative guy. I think this pair may not be in everyone's top three, but they're definitely in my 3 spot.
Okay. I'm going to see if I can surprise you here with my 4. I got John Robinson and Vrabel from the Titans.
I don't have him that high. It's not surprising because I like them a lot.
I mean, think about like the moves that Robinson has made. He literally found just a, diamond in the rough in Tannehill and just been great for him. On top of Vrabel's just, elite, game strategy and being a great coach. But they made great moves. You drafted AJ Brown. I mean, maybe not their first round picks like the last or 2 years ago, whatever it was. But on top of that, like AJ Brown, I think he's a huge home run. Derrick Henry and the Titans have gone from kind of a team where back when Mariota was there, it was kind of like 7-9, 9-7. Like maybe you could see it like playoff team to where they're easily like they are one of the 2 of the favorites in the division now, and if not the favorite. So I think they are a good little mix, and they do everything right.
Well, I like the point you brought up because I was going to say with this group, I have them later in my list that name a team that after they draft a quarterback bust, number 2 in the draft, and has whiffs after that in draft classes, like to the level that they have. When was a team like that good after those moves? Like the fact that the Titans are a perennial playoff team now and a team that's now looked at as one of the strongest in the division is pretty crazy. Like, I'm not going to praise them for having a bad draft class a year or 2 ago and here and there, right? Especially with the first round picks have been inconsistent. They've definitely made up with it with some of their second round picks and other picks in drafts and their other moves. But it really is crazy to see because from an outsider's perspective, the Titans should be bad. Like, it's just feel with the defense they had last year.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
the whiff on Marcus Mariota, the whiff on not Isaiah Wynn, that kid from Georgia last year. It's just like those are moves that bad football teams make, yet they've made such crazy moves, especially the Tannehill one, that it's just completely outweighed that.
Yeah, it really they might just be an enigma, honestly. Like
it's crazy. Like
that might be like their strategy.
Every other team that whiffed on a quarterback has either taken a new one and they started over like a new regime, or I mean the only really good one it feels like has been the Bears. Unless you managed to weasel Tom Brady like the Bucs did. But even Jameis Winston was, I don't know. It's just
I don't know. I just give credit, to the Titans and Robinson and Vrabel because obviously when Tannehill was on the Dolphins, I always thought he was good. Like I thought he was good. I didn't watch many Dolphins games when he was playing, but I would just read the stat line and I'm like, damn, they lost another game, but hey, Tannehill went 22 for 31 with 280 and 2 touchdowns. I mean, that's pretty damn good. Like he just needs some help, and I think they kind of saw the same thing. Like let's just get him around our team. And we'll be balling with Arthur Smith at OC.
I think the problem at the time with Tannehill was he did have good plays and good stats, and he was a high draft pick. He was like number 8 overall. He had the talent. He just had like his lowlights were really ugly. And I think that turned off a lot of teams when he eventually became a free agent. On top of the fact that you're a free agent quarterback, like obviously you'll have a market for a backup job, but it's just a weird scenario to be a quarterback that kind of flopped after your
Well, it
rookie
also,
contract.
yeah. I mean, it does also help when you go to a team where you can hand off the ball 30 times a
Yeah.
game.
But yeah, I like that group. So we're on number 4. My number 4 group is Brandon Bean, Sean McDermott, the Bills crew. I thought I was going to have them top 3, but I didn't. So, okay, we already talked about them. My number 5 group, though, and 5, 6, 7, and 8 are all like insanely close.
Okay.
I have Chris Ballard and Frank Reich here. For better
Okay.
or worse,
They didn't make my top 5, but I have them somewhere. I have them in those 30 slots.
here's the thing. Like, I really respect this organization because they have a lot more patience than I would have. Chris Ballard and Frank Reich, they have gone with the philosophy they're building in-house, and they're not going to go out and overpay anyone unless like they're on their team and they deserve the contract. It's been said like every year. It's always the Colts should make splashes in free agency. Oh, the Colts should trade for this. The Colts. If you look at every single move the Colts have made has been very like financially sound, smart move. Even the Carson Wentz trade. It's like
that and
you look
the
at a
DeForest
value
Buckner
perspective
trade.
a year later, like it's crazy. Yeah, the DeForest Buckner trade, right? Like really good, smart, sound value deals that have a ton of upside with only a little bit of downside.
Also, I mean, they got Darius Leonard in the second round. Like,
Yeah, it's their draft selections have been crazy. I mean, Quentin Nelson was a home run. Darius Leonard was a home run. They ended up picking up. They picked up who? They picked up that pass rusher in the draft this year, right? Not
who was
Owe,
it?
the kid from
Quiddy Pie.
yeah, Kwity Paye, who had a lot of people thought was going like top 15. He just slid to him. Like I don't know. I think this is just sometimes you can overthink it, making a list like this. They're just consistent. They're just good. They're not gonna run this team into the ground anytime soon. They have been building and building and building, and eventually it should be a powerhouse.
Yeah, I mean that defense is stacked. At 5 for me, I mean you talked about it before and hit on it. Mickey Loomis and Sean Payton. I think that's a good duo. I mean they built that team whenever Drew Brees was kind of on his last leg to win that Super Bowl. Never accomplished it. They were probably a PI away, a PI call away from playing being in the Super Bowl and possibly winning against the Patriots that year. But I thought they did a great job structuring that team. They're kind of if there's a team I'm willing to bet that can get past all this cap room they are in and get right back on track in a couple years, it's the Saints.
Yep, I agree. All right, who you got 6?
Oh, okay. Well, I'm just going to double down on one you just said. I got Ballard and Wright.
All right, yeah, we just talked about them. I'll go with my number 6. This is easily one of my favorite GMs in the league, actually. I mean, I like the tandem as well, mainly because all the guys I like every year he drafts. And that's Rick Spielman, the Vikings general manager. For some reason, me and Rick Spielman must have a very similar scouting process or something, or whatever it is. He drafts all the guys I like every year. Every single year, I look throughout the Vikings draft picks, at least the past 2 years. I've been like, oh, yeah, I like that guy. Oh, holy crap. Their entire draft class is dudes that I circled and I wanted to know where they ended up. So, like this year, Kellen Mond obviously is one of them. If you listen to the podcast, he's a dude that I really liked. They drafted Chaz Surratt, linebacker out of North Carolina, who me and you both really liked.
Yeah.
They had a couple
They're
of
the
other
king
later.
of the third round.
They had a couple other later picks. Last year, they drafted the kid from South Carolina, the pass
DJ
rusher.
Wanham.
Yeah, DJ Wanham, who we both thought like, dude, come round 5 as a rotational pass rusher, that could be a dude that brings some value to your football team. Obviously, he's not a 3-down 3 down outside backer, defensive end, pass rushing type because he's just not big enough. But
Mhm.
I mean, you saw last year he was able to get 3 sacks and a bunch of pressures as a rotational pass rusher. Those guys can really add a lot of value to your football team in like the 5th round. I like their draft strategy of trading back and acquiring a lot of picks in sections of the draft that they think are going to be very strong. It just seems like it's a very calculated duo. They've had a lot of draft success. And I think that they're primed for a way better season than last year.
Yeah, I think they'll definitely be on the come up. I got them a little later on in mine, but at 7, I got. This is tough because I know it's a duo, and it's tough for me to put Bruce Arenas on here. But I think Jason Litch just like kind of carries this because he did build that Super Bowl roster.
Yeah.
You look at what he did with the secondary. You look what he did with the D line. He drafted Tristan Wirfs. He drafted Mike Evans, Goblin. That Super Bowl team, that depth chart was all due to him. And I think he deserves a spot in the top 10 and Bruce Arians because he did coach him
Bruce
last year.
Arians, dude. Come on.
Arians. Dude, I always screw up his last name. I can never say it. But, I think he deserves a spot in the top 10, so I'm putting him at 7.
I actually don't have him. He was one of those ones that's like definitely close, but I feel like it's just hard. You won the Brady sweepstakes. I mean, yeah, you're right. You built the roster. They have a phenomenal roster, and he'd probably be right after in my top 10 list. So my number 7 is Lynch and Chaney, the 49er crew. I just like them. I like them a lot. I wasn't necessarily a huge fan of the trade for Lance, but I see why you did it, and the fact that you almost had to in the modern game. If you like that guy, go ahead and. So I respect it. I wouldn't have done it personally, but I respect it, and you can see the clear upside. But this is just a tandem I think is great. I think that they are the epitome of like the modern NFL guys. They're innovative. They seem to be like ahead of the curve. I think that the way that they build their football teams up front first and then into the skill players, the specific players that they take, every single move I see the 49ers make, for the most part, it has always been a move that's like, yeah, I like that. Oh, yeah, I like that one too. Okay, I like that one. And it's just fantastic coaching from Shanahan as well.
Yeah, they're a good group too. They're in my top 10, but at 8 I got Spillman and Zimmer, and you already talked about them. But I think like you talk about a team that's building onto something that has invested, not heavy in the first round draft capital, but these mid tier rounds and trying to find talent and make these second string and capable starters. I think they're going to be very deep, and I know their defense was young last year, but with these young guys, I don't expect Zimmer to have a
You also
bad
added
defense like that
Patrick
again.
Peterson, which is a huge add for a
Needed
huge
a
position
corner.
of need since Xavier Rhodes.
Yeah, because they got the kid from Mississippi State that was a rookie last year. Was his name Drake Patrick? I think it is.
No, they
I
didn't they get the kid from TCU?
I thought they had the guy from Mississippi State.
I'll look up there. It was the 2020 draft, you're saying?
Yeah. He was their number one. Well, it had to be their number one corner last year because, they didn't have any corners. But, you definitely saw, like, him struggle early. But I think, like,
Jeff
later in the season. Jeff Gladney? Okay, but, like.
And Dantzler. They picked up them both.
Oh, Dantzler. That's who I'm thinking of.
Yeah, they picked up
those
both
are two
of them.
guys that I think you'll see a lot of progression this year. Like, yeah, you saw the first year struggle at them, but when the Vikings got, like, hot, they started playing well.
Yeah. No, I like what they've been doing. I think that it's one of those strategies, like you said, you just acquire enough talent at every position, and all of a sudden you are going to have a great roster. We're going to get a little bit more into the Vikings in a second here. My number 9 is John Robinson and Vrabel. My number 10, I skipped my number 8 somehow. My number 8 was John Harbaugh and Eric DeCosta, the Ravens crew. And I know their GM just took over, but I think Harbaugh kind of carries it. This is more of like the Ravens organization in general. Honestly, if DeCosta was there for longer, they'd probably be higher up.
They'd be
Consistent
top 5.
organization, just consistent. If we were talking organizations, then this is easily a top 5 team. Just because he hasn't been there a long time, I'm not going to give him the respect that I have some of these other dudes that have either made incredible moves or have just been around for a while. Like, you can make the argument. I mean, he's been gift wrapped an insane football team.
Yeah.
Still, though, I think he's a good guy for the job, and I think if I were to rate Paris, they're still in the top 10.
Yeah, he missed my list just because, he hasn't been there. But at 9, I have Lynch and Shanny. So at 10, I had to do it, dude. I have to talk about them. But I got old Andrew Berry and Stefanski.
I have him at 10 too.
Oh, let's go. Okay,
yeah,
cool.
I like this. I like this tandem. I think
they
could be
group.
higher. I think they could be higher. Dude, you are the group. You are the guys that finally resurrected the Browns from misery. That deserves your top 10 in and of itself. Like,
well, that especially. But you look at what Barry's done this offseason. They've been aggressive. They made. I loved every single of their move. I thought their draft class was very good. Stefanski just once Baker started understanding it, they kind of took off in that whole offense, and I think they're just kind of building onto that, especially in the future. And maybe the one reason I don't have them higher is because, you look at what a good meat of that team is what Dorsey kind of did a couple years prior. So, like, I can't give them full credit, but, it's their time now. And this offseason, I thought, jump shot them into the top 10 for me.
Yeah, I agree with the Dorsey comment to a certain extent. I think that Andrew Berry's just done nothing but good since then, though. And the thing I'll say about Stefanski is that name a player on that football team that wasn't playing better than last year. 2 years ago, I guess. There wasn't a single player on that football team that regressed. Maybe you can handpick like one of their D backs early in the year. Or I guess late in the year too. Their D backs did kind of stuff. All right, excluding the defensive backs, name a player.
Well, they had a lot hurt.
Yeah, they did have a lot hurt.
Or Delpit.
But I don't know. It feels like at least that every single player on the Browns team improved, all the way down to who everyone thought was a bust, David Njoku. All of a sudden, you're seeing the David Njoku that was supposed to be good and was good like 2 years ago. It's like, oh, he's back. Baker, he's playing well. Myles Garrett, Defensive Player of the Year candidate. Like, everyone was playing how they were supposed to be playing, it seemed like, especially at the end of the season. Phenomenal job by Stefanski and Andrew Berry. Whether or not they built it doesn't really matter. They have been steering the ship themselves in the right direction and have taken that jump that Dorsey was unable to.
I think their big thing that I would tell a lot of people is that, they've made great moves and they've done a great job coaching, but those two also established a culture in Cleveland. And if you want to be a winning, there's a culture in Pittsburgh, there's a culture in Baltimore, every day you go to the field, to the park, what you're supposed to do. And just that feeling of like winning and just having your certain job, I think they've established that into Cleveland, and that's why I'm more on them as being a perennial powerhouse for years.
All right, we got any honorable mentions? I have a couple. So obviously the Bucs are one, but you mentioned them already. The other I want to talk about is the Dolphins. Greer and what's their head coach's name again?
Brian Flores.
Flores, yeah, Greer and Flores. If it weren't for that one trade, I would have this team, this duo as a top 10 guy, duo. I do not like the move from going from 3 to 12 and then back up to 6 to take Waddle. I hated that, honestly.
Yeah, that cringed me a little bit.
I thought they got up until then, really the only bad move, and it really wasn't that bad of a move, was trading Minka, but you still got a pretty, like a top 20 pick in return. It wasn't really, obviously in hindsight, you probably wouldn't have wanted to do it, but that was fine from a value perspective. And I mean, their draft class was all right. It gave you some pretty serviceable players. They kind of turned a team that had just a bunch of nobodies on offensive line into a group that, if you look statistically, was like average, maybe a little bit above average, which is a feat in and of itself. The fact that, I mean, they did invest in it, but you've seen teams go years and years and years and drafts after drafts investing into offensive lines and not being able to get anything. They were able to take guys like Eric Flowers, shove them at guard, which is almost like an interior tackle, and all of a sudden turn a bunch of, one draft class, a couple of free agent signs, you have an average to above average offensive line. Pretty good stuff from them. I think they're definitely an honorable mention.
Yeah, I would put an honorable mention too, just based off kind of last year, teetering what we think they're going to be this year is Joe Judge and
Dave Gettleman.
Gettleman. Yeah, I know Gettleman gets a lot of crap.
A lot of his moves have worked. I like Gettleman's moves.
Gettleman, like when his back is against the wall, because I've always seen the news that he's in the hot seat. Listen, he made that trade for Leonard Williams. That worked. He signed James Bradbury. Bradbury played tremendous.
The Odell trade.
The Odell, nice for him. So I think they're honorable mention because it looks like Joe Judge does have that kind of like he's building something in there. I mean, they play in the East, so like, first 1 to 7 wins, but
I agree completely though. Also, like New York is just a tough market to play in, and the one bad apple in his moves has been the Daniel Jones pick thus far, and it's not even set in stone. Daniel Jones is going into his 3rd year, but as of right now, it's like you would have liked to see Daniel Jones a little bit further ahead, or have just shown
but that
you
apple
more
hasn't fallen
flashes
from the tree just yet.
No, yeah, obviously it hasn't. I agree though. I have been kind of defending Dave Gettleman for a while now, and there are a lot of people that don't like the moves. It's just you look at it at the track record. It's been good. It's been really good. He's had 2 bad draft picks, and so let's not even. He's got 1 bad pick, which was the corner that they took out of Georgia, DeAndre Baker.
Oh yeah, DeAndre Baker.
Taking him as number 1 corner off the board was not a great move, and a lot of people don't like the Kadarius Toney move. But aside from that, his trades have worked. He's built a good. I mean, he got crap for the Saquon Barkley pick, but you passed on Sam Darnold for Saquon, and looking at that now, you're thinking that's probably a smart decision. Obviously, you probably could have had Allen or Lamar, but at the time, if you're going off consensus, if you're taking a quarterback at that pick, you're taking Darnold, which was probably a good move to pass on him, at least as of right now. So, yeah, I agree. That's a good honorable mention.